Hey everyone, my name is Nathan Pay and welcome to another episode of Blu Ocean Crypto. Today we're going to take a look at the mass ownership Ruby model, which has caused a big storm within the community and online. I mean, there's people who love it, there's people who hate it, some people don't really understand it, some people think it's the best thing since sliced bread. I'm particularly really excited about it, but what I want to do is summarize a lot of this for you guys. You know, I've spent quite a few times going through this. I've talked to a lot of people in the community and the team to kind of get some extra insight on what's going on here, but let's jump right into it. So I'm not going to read this verbatim. What I'm going to do is summarize for you guys. Definitely be sure to go read this. It's very important, especially if you're invested in Mavia, to understand what they're doing here. But first off, they're talking about how it sustainably scales to the masses. And in my opinion, that's what this model does best. So first, what they're talking about here is how it's kind of the boom of play to earn and what happened during the last bull run, right? How there was this mass push just to sell all these assets and NFTs and lands. Hundreds of attempts have happened in this. And really one thing's clear, you know, incentives alone can't be the lifeblood of a game's economy. It has to be about equilibrium. Right? They talk about here how the balance between immersive gaming, a strong economic framework, and seamless Web3 integration demands innovation and new ideas which have never been tried before. Now, innovating in any industry is risky, right? Why wouldn't you do what's already worked before? Why wouldn't you just copy an old model? The truth is, in Web3, there really isn't a play-to-earn model that we've seen can work, that can handle the test of time, that can survive a bear market. So big kudos to the team for trying to take that innovation, that step forward. And in my opinion, this is a model that we're going to see a lot of other projects start using and duplicating. They also talk about, you know, the main problems, kind of the pump and dump that we all experienced. You know, a lot of play to earn titles need new players coming in order for that exit liquidity for other players to cash out. That's a big issue with games. What happens when a game gets a stable user base and it's not constantly flooding new players in? And really, we've just seen that most of these models are not working. Now, yes, of course, the next bull run happens. A lot of us are going to make a lot of money on play to earn gaming again, I'm sure. But right now, there's not a ton of projects out there that's really surviving or doing all too well right now. They also talk about the false promise of incentivized gaming. Games should be fun. That's why it's called a game, not a job. And I do agree with them on this. You know, really during the last bull run, we had all these clickers. You know, it was basically just like DeFi platforms with a game interface on it. It was to make money. It wasn't really about the game. The game part was kind of a neat aspect of it. But especially us in Blu Ocean Games Guild, this is something we've been talking to a lot of projects leaders about for, you know, really the past year straight, making a fun game first. If it's not engaging by its own merit, monetary rewards can't make up for a boring experience. They're also talking about bridging the crypto divide, how most gamers don't invest in crypto and NFTs. So a model that doesn't appeal to the masses is obviously going to have difficulty because there's only a smaller player base, if it was just Web3, that they could market to. That really limits their ability to get the game out there, to create a thriving ecosystem, to bring in new players, to bring in esports team, and really be a contender in the video game industry. Now, this is probably one of the biggest things I think the article does a good job at highlighting, and why this model kind of came the way that it did. They talk about compliance with app stores. And they're right. Most play to earn, I'd say almost all of them, fail to comply with Google Play and Apple's App Store compliance, right? So the regulations there. It eliminates access to a significant mobile gaming audience who primarily engages with games via these platforms. We know mobile gaming is a $1 trillion industry. How do people play mobile games? Their phones. What are they using to get those games? The app stores. They're not just downloading all these APKs, which a lot of people won't even do because they feel like it could be risky or harm their Android device. And you can't even do APKs generally with an iPhone. So this is a huge leap to be able to take Mavia, make it scalable to the masses, which actually provides a huge opportunity for us Web3 players. But the question then becomes, well, how? So before I get into that, let's just cover some of these other things. We'll talk about scammy perception. It's tainted with association with scams and get-rich schemes. It's very true, right? 100x return. Look at all the clickbait YouTube videos, you know, buy this horse, breed this Axie, you know, all that stuff like that. I mean, you know, not to single out those games, but I just did. There was a lot of content out there that content creators were using to pump their bags so they could unload on their viewers, which is horrible to even think about. But there was a lot of scammy stuff going on. Also, I feel bad for all the content creators right now. People getting reached out in Telegram asking to beta test their game. It's really a malicious, executable, and then your MetaMask gets drained if you don't use hardware wallets. Tip there: use hardware wallets with your MetaMask. Don't be a victim to the beta scam that's going on in Web3 games right now either. But anyways, I digress. Steep learning curve. They're right. Bridging different chains, learning about exchanges and wallets. There's this risk of losing your assets, losing your land. I mean, it's really difficult for a lot of people to jump into that without spending a lot of time getting comfortable with it. Also, generating revenue for sustainability. You need a sustainable revenue model to survive. A lot of these other play to earn titles that did really good during the bull run and basically have soft rugged or pretty much rug pulled at this point. They were just selling their own tokens. There'd be a tax on extracting. The creators of the game, the development team, would take that tax, dump their own tokens on the market. If there's not enough liquidity there, they can't survive. Obviously, that's not going to be sustainable. So now, with that background and understanding kind of behind us, let's jump into the Mavia mass ownership model. So it's a pioneering concept that breaches the confines of traditional gaming economies. Instead of cryptocurrency-based rewards, we're putting the spotlight on Ruby and digital collectible NFTs called legendary items. Now, there's a lot to this legendary item thing, and I don't want to go past this too quickly because what's going to happen, this article seems to talk about skins a lot, and really there's a lot more to it than just skins. But how do you get Ruby first? So players can earn Ruby through winning multiplayer battles, luck-based events like removing obstacles on your base, gameplay challenges, achievements, special events, propelling their gaming experience beyond standard play. The best part is that all players, free-to-play players, and NFT owners can earn Ruby, making the Ruby accountable, accessible by everyone. Now, hold on. First time you read this, you're like, wait, what? Ruby's not a cryptocurrency anymore, and free-to-play players can earn it? Why do I care about owning a land then? Here's why. Landowners are going to be able to earn a significant, and I mean significant, amount more Ruby for their actions than the free-to-play players. Now remember that point because that's going to be more important as we go on here. So what can Ruby be used for? It's simple. It's the only currency that can be used to craft and trade legendary items inside the game, which includes skins, cosmetics, statues, land decorations, and even a special subgroup of one-time use consumables called legendary consumables. Now here's the thing. Right away, base builder games, what's the most important part to most people? Progression. Probably not skins. Now, the skin market, massive. I mean, we understand this with most games. I don't think we should discount skins, but I think what we should focus on here more is statues and legendary consumables. Legendary consumables are going to be boosts, things that help you progress in the game, maybe speed up your troop chaining time, your collection resource time, things that are going to be extremely highly sought after by not only competitive players who are trying to push the envelope and get their bases up as high as possible, but also free-to-play players and casual players. I mean, you can be a free-to-play player or a Web3 player and be competitive, or you can, same thing with casual. Everyone wants to progress their base. Statues will also have a direct impact on the progression of your base, or maybe the rate at which you're earning resources. In my opinion, this is where the majority of the demand is going to be. Skins, take it or leave it. In my opinion, I think it's cool. Probably it will do fantastic with this model, but we don't have to be so concerned about the skins. It's the consumables and the statues that's really going to have the demand. Now, they do talk about how all legendary items are NFTs. So they each have a limited supply. The range and supply demands on the rarity of the item. This is very important. We're not just going to mass flood the market with all of these consumables and statues and skins, and then there's going to be a price bidding war, and it goes super low. So there might be a time limit. You have 24 hours to mint. If you're a landowner, there's going to be different prices on the minting price. Depends on how it's going to impact the game, the progression, right? Maybe some statues are going to be super highly sought after because they are going to give you that edge in progression. So they talk about how legendary items form the heart of this innovative model. Also, put skins and color themes on your characters and buildings, deck out your base with legendary decorations and statues, change your scenery and environment with land decor, and even use one-time legendary consumables. Each of these items aren't just cosmetic. They are NFTs, each with an address on the blockchain and owned by a unique wallet or player at all times. Then it talks about, well, how does the trading work? So aligning with the Google and Apple's guidelines, they established a dual market system. This is really cool. So in the app, players can trade legendary items for Ruby. All items traded inside the app are on-chain, but cost no gas to the end user, as we reimburse all gas fees. That means they do. So this is cool, and kudos to the Mavia team. They're covering all the gas fees for all these transactions, so it allows for a seamless experience within the game. Now, here's something that's easy to overlook, but important to know. Right now, as for trading these items for real-world value, such as cryptocurrency or fiat, players can buy, sell, and trade their legendary items on the Mavia Web NFT marketplace outside the app or any other marketplace, NFT marketplace of their choice. This was a little confusing because you're thinking, oh, you got to go to Web3 to buy it. No. Free-to-play players are going to be able to use Stripe, which is a world-renowned payment processor, using PayPal, credit card, fiat, Google Play to purchase these. Then the Web3 owner, what happens in the back end is those purchases, let's say it's fiat through a credit card, that's going to get converted into ETH, and then us as a Web3 player gets paid in ETH. So do you guys realize the implications of this? Web2 free-to-play players who are doing microtransactions in the game, we are getting paid on the Web3 side of that. Let that sink in for a second here. Mavia has found a way to bridge Web2 with Web3 so that Web2 players, their microtransactions, pay us in ETH. That's insane. I think that's probably one of the biggest takeaways and things that get me the most excited about this, because the Web2 player doesn't have to know anything about crypto, and we get paid for our legendary items that we get minted in ETH. We're talking about a game that can be scalable to millions and millions and millions of players, and we get to benefit from that as people minting these legendary items. Like, hats off, right? Like, this is insane. So it talks about how the uniqueness goes just beyond gameplay. It reshapes the dynamics of gaming economy. With Ruby being earned by players and only having value within the game, they've corrected the prevalent problem of price manipulation, thus ensuring an inclusive and fair gaming environment. Also, we don't got to worry about market manipulation, token prices, bear market, bull market. You know, a lot of these prices will stabilize, and that's what they're talking about, is sustainable, and the longevity of the game as well will be incredible for it. Because legendary items are not sold by the developer, but are instead earned and traded by players, that means the mass ownership model is completely owned by the players of Mavia. I mean, come on, guys. You're paying for our gas fees, everyone's gas fees. You're not taking any of the profits from these NFTs that we're making. Like, this is insane what they did for us. This is really incredible to see. They don't need to fear price manipulation of Ruby because it doesn't have direct monetary value, but instead the NFTs carry the value, and of course the NFTs will have capped supplies. They can't just be infinitely minted, and there's going to be a lot of demand on those statues and consumables. And heck, there is a lot of demand on skins, which there very well may be in a few years as this game gets to 10, 20, 30, 40, who knows, 50 million players. The skin thing could actually turn out much better than a lot of people are expecting. So they're really talking about how there isn't this pump and dump. The model really empowers the players, and it's a shift to a more engaging, fair, and balanced market for all digital assets taken straight from the heart of Mavia into the wide world of Web3 gaming. Sweet. So let's talk about the compliance a little more. So this is a huge thing, right? Like, Apple wants their cut. This is the main thing. Apple wants 30% of all microtransactions from any apps on their store, period. When you have NFTs, how do you do that? How do you have an NFT marketplace within the game where Apple's going to get their cut? That's been the challenge with a lot of these projects, right? So it even talks about here specifically 3.11, which states that in-app purchases must be used for services related to non-fungible tokens such as minting, listing, and transferring. So the App Store policies clearly state that cryptocurrency transactions should not provide additional features or functionality within the mobile application. There's a little gray area there, and that's how some games are trying to kind of get around it. But really, What's going to happen if you just get taken off the App Store? Right? Your game's gone. You don't want to be invested in something that's just going to die because you didn't follow compliance. We all know about stuff going on in the US with SEC and all that. You've got to be compliant, guys. As much as we hate it, and the whole decentralization is like the theme of crypto, we still operate in the real world. Compliance is important. Also, talking about Coinbase, OpenSea, how OpenSea had, you can't buy NFTs from OpenSea on the Apple phone. You actually can just view them. All this stuff has been going on. So when OpenSea and Coinbase have to deal with this, why wouldn't Mavia have to? And honestly, in my opinion, Apple just doesn't care. This is just, they want their cut. That's just kind of how it's going to be. These guys finally found a way to get around it, right? Covering all gas fees, eliminating the need for players to hold any cryptocurrency for minting. You don't even have to pay gas on minting, guys, or trading items. This approach further reduces the app's interaction with cryptocurrencies, and any minor costs incurred will be offset by the Sapphire trading fee charged by us. So for example, when you buy a skin or mint it, there might be this very slight, Sapphire fee. You can kind of see the picture here. Purchase for 500 Ruby, cost 1 Sapphire. So the design of this model effectively addresses App Store compliance issues by carefully separating cryptocurrency transactions from in-game interactions and demonstrating how Web3 mobile games can coexist successfully within the existing App Store policies. All right, now that we got that behind us, compliance, important, whole reason for this model. Let's talk about the legendary items. So in Mavia, gaming incorporates an exciting spectrum of elements, and among the most captivating are their legendary items. They aren't simply collectible aesthetic additions to your gaming repertoire. They create a new dimension of ownership and trade within the world of Mavia. So we've talked about this, right? You've got skins, which can be for your heroes, your buildings, troops, base decorations, unique legendary consumables. So there's basically 4 main, NFTs, I guess you could say, legendary NFTs: the skins, the legendary consumables, the base decorations, and the statues. The skins and the base decorations are purely cosmetic. 100%, we know that. The statues and the consumables, this is going to directly impact base progression, which we know is what every player is going to want. Now, here's the question that comes up. Well, won't Sapphire do the same thing? Can't I just, as a free-to-play player, buy Sapphire and buy boosts and buy statues? No, you can't. The statues, you have to buy this way. Sapphire, maybe there'll be some kind of unique boosts or some things that you can do with Sapphire, but really the legendary consumables are often going to mimic some of those and be potentially a lot better. I'll give you an example. Sapphire might instant build something. So you can use, and we can see this right in the beta now, pay a certain amount of Sapphire to instantly finish the building of something. So you don't have to wait the 10 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours. Also to buy resources. While legendary consumables could be things for boosts like increased troop training time, increased resource production. Those are completely different types of boosts. So there's going to be a huge demand on the legendary consumables and the Sapphire simultaneously. They're not mutually exclusive to each other. So I think that's an important thing to note here. This isn't just about the skins. And in my opinion, I actually think the skins are less important to us Web3 players than the consumables and the statues. So they talk about how they're not just tradable assets, they hold a floor price, so you're gonna be able to see kind of what the floor price is, what the activity was, what the market trends are, and you're gonna be able to use this all kind of within the game. Now there will be the off-app marketplace for you to make purchases as well, and they have to make that seamless. That's where people are gonna be using fiat and stuff to pay for a lot of these things that we're minting, but they can make that seamless and easy for people, no problem. And then we get paid in ETH, which I still think is just absolutely insane. They talk about how the transparency and traceability of blockchain technology allow each legendary item to be tracked using any blockchain explorer. This visibility and tamper evident log enhances the security and credibility of each item. It does. It means people aren't going to flood the market and hack the game and make a bunch of these skins or make a bunch of these consumables, and it's not going to work like that. So going down, talking about the marketplace, which I kind of touched into a little bit, there's the in-app Ruby marketplace. It's the primary trading platform accessible within the game, where you can acquire legendary items either by crafting them using earned Ruby or purchasing them directly from other players using Ruby. So the whole Ruby swap back and forth thing, all done in game, right? Each legendary item has a Ruby floor price that fluctuates based on demand. Then there's the external Web3 marketplace. I've mentioned this a few times, where it operates outside the app and is structured to allow players to trade their legendary items and NFTs for real-world currencies like Ethereum. It's inspired by the in-game marketplace, and players can sync their Mavia accounts with the external platform to automatically update their legendary items and Ruby balances. So, without just continuing to read this verbatim, like I said, people are going to be able to purchase the legendary consumables and statues and skins and land decorations if you want them to, with a credit card, with PayPal, through Strike, world-class payment processor. That gets converted into ETH. We get paid as a Web3 player. Pretty crazy. One key aspect of the Ruby marketplace that sets it apart from traditional app-based trading platforms is the crafting and burning process of acquiring legendary items. So I want to make sure I mention this to you guys. When a player crafts a legendary item, the expended Ruby is permanently destroyed or burned, thereby reducing supply. This Ruby burning also occurs during trading. Small trading fee in Ruby is applied to each item traded in the marketplace. Basically what this is doing is, even though it's not a cryptocurrency, so it's kind of like, well, why do they care about burning? Because they don't want to flood the market with all this Ruby. Yes, free-to-play players are going to be able to earn it. Super reduced rate. They're also going to make sure that people can't just bot or make mass accounts to farm that Ruby. Because if there's an oversaturation of Ruby, everything will just go down, regardless of the demand. It'll be cheaper to buy everything over time. So I think it's important that they still have this. So also the Sapphire. So this is interesting. Sapphire is what the original model talked about Ruby being. And I think this is where some people in the community have been a little upset, because the original model was 100,000 lands. It was going to be a Web3 game only. Ruby was going to be the main primary currency to do everything, and we were going to earn Ruby. Now they have Sapphire and Ruby. Ruby's for the skins, the land decorations, the legendary consumables, and the statues, which, like I said, are the most important things. And now they have Sapphire. So Sapphire can buy missing resources, it can complete construction, boost resource collection, buy additional engineers, Ruby marketplace trades, right? There's the fee, and skip training times. So the legendary consumables might do this better, right? Maybe they give you a boost on your builders. I don't see any boosting builds, build timers here, just buying engineers. Maybe instead of skip training times, it boosts your train times. So take these 6 things that you can see Sapphire use, think of all the other potential boosts that Clash of Clans has. There's quite a few that legendary consumables can do. Plus, legendary consumables could even mimic some of these, maybe better duration. Maybe there's a 7-week resource creation boost that you can get only through a legendary consumable, and it's like a super rare one, for example. So that's an important part to understand, is Sapphire and Ruby now are different. The legendary consumables will mimic some of the Sapphire uses, but the team has mentioned that they expect the legendary consumables to be some of the highest in demand and most sought after things in the game. So just Sapphire isn't going to be enough. Now, there is one thing before I get to the free to play that some people in the community have said is, why don't they just give us a split on the Sapphire earnings, right? Why can't we as landowners just also get a piece of Sapphire? Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I do know that there is a lot of legal ramifications with that. Not saying it's impossible, right? There could be a way that they could figure that out. If they could do that, holy crap. I mean, I think this is an amazing model. We're all in for a wild ride. If they can figure out a way to give us a little bit of the Sapphire, I'm all for it. But I do think there's going to be a lot of legal hoops and obstacles for them to jump through in order for something like that to happen. But I am curious to see how they can give more value to landowners, which is really kind of the main narrative on the people who don't like this model. They want to see more value to the landowners. I don't. I'm convinced this is the best thing I've ever seen in Web3 as far as bridging Web 2 and Web 3. I've never seen anything like this. And we research tons and tons. In fact, we've looked at 3,200 play to earn projects our research team has in Blu Ocean Games Guild. We have hundreds of in-depth research reports. We grade games with a rubric on it system. We have investment reports for hundreds of these titles. This is incredible for me to see. I think they're making history in Web 3 right now and bridging it to Web 2, like I mentioned. So just kind of skipping down to free to play. So they're talking about how it's the heart of their Mavia gaming model, right? It's going to be available in the App Store It's going to be launching across the entire world. Basically, this allows them to do aggressive marketing because now they're a compliant game, right? So they're going to be able to market on all the different app stores. They're going to be, and here's the cool thing too. And a lot of people might not realize this. I'm a marketing consultant. I work in Web3. I work with a lot of projects. We sell marketing services to tons of different companies. We've worked with some of the biggest names in the industry. Marketing in Web3 is a completely different beast. It is nothing like Web2. It is a lot more complex. A lot of projects make the mistake of paying all this money to content creators and doing press releases. It's not the way to do it. There's so many moving parts. When you can market like a Web2 game, guess what? That model's been perfected already. Tons of people know how to do it. There's you create a marketing model that just mimics what a lot of these other successful games have done. You create a sound marketing plan. You can follow what's tried, tested, and true. Now we don't have to worry about, is their marketing going to be good or not because it's crypto? I mean, that's the biggest concern with most of these Web3 projects, guys. Their marketing freaking sucks because they don't know what they're doing and they can't afford to hire people that really do, because there's very few people in Web3 that understand Web3 marketing. That's why there's people like me who are actually marketing consultants in this industry, because there's such a high demand for it. So that alone to me is just like, now you can use Web2 marketing and go through everything that works for all these other games. It just makes that so much easier. So now, just so the video doesn't take too long, we want to talk about land NFTs. So things are a little different, right? So right now, the land NFTs create significantly more Ruby than what you can earn as a free-to-play player. So that's really important to note, because the question that some people have asked is, well, if I can make Ruby on a free-to-play land, why do I even need to bother with a NFT land? Because it's going to be like 20, 30, 50, 100x. You know, it's going to be massive. So it still allows the free-to-play player to get a piece of the pie, but by no means are they going to be able to catch up to people owning lands, which is also going to create a huge incentive for renting and partnering. Think about all the esports teams. Think about all the competitive players that come over here. Now, esports is another thing. Wager matches alone is going to bring esports teams in droves. That kind of revenue potential doesn't exist in general Web2 games. There's going to be a huge push to get these consumables to level these base up. What players might want to do is just rent a land to maximize on Ruby earnings, so that they can then use that Ruby to then pay for the upgrades on their free-to-play base that they have. That's just one example. So it's not just metaphorical territory that come to life. What's more, owning an NFT opens up the opportunity for passive earnings as well. Talk about the renting of lands. So here's an example. Now, the player base won't be exponential like that forever, obviously, but the lands we know are capped at 10,000. And I mean, guys, we have 300,000 people on the wait list right now. 1 million players, 10,000 lands. That's very realistic to hit at launch, and I expect to hit 10 million or beyond. This is going to be insane. So onboarding the masses, right? This is another thing I've already kind of touched on a little bit, so I'll skip through this a bit. But really, that way they can push this marketing, they can push this through all the app stores, they can treat it like a traditional Web2 game and getting it out there, following tried, tested, and true models. I'm more confident in that than trying to market to a Web3 player base with a very limited amount of players. And we now get the revenue from the Web2 players' microtransactions. That's the biggest thing that blew me away about this, is like, wait, someone who knows nothing about crypto is paying me. Game over. That's how I feel. So there's a little bit more information about like global games market, right? How much is being spent? Look at this, $103 billion mobile game, 190. This is the global games market's year-on-year growth rates. We're not even talking about the total industry or how much has been spent. This is just the growth rates. So in conclusion, and I'll just summarize this here, the introduction of mass ownership model is new and untried, which big kudos to them. But guys, legendary consumables, statues, these are going to be what's the most sought after. There's going to be limited supply of mints. They're not going to be saturated. Ruby is going to be burned. There's a lot of things that they kept with the original model, but there's a lot of things that they also changed dramatically. So I think this is much needed. We're in a land of uncertainty right now. Look at what's going on with the spot ETFs, with SEC, going after these different titles with other games, not allowing US users to pull out their earnings. I mean, we're looking at something that's potentially scalable and has longevity, that can work regardless of what the markets are doing, and tap into Web 2 players to allow Web 3 players to benefit. So tell me what you think about this. Leave your comments down below. I'll definitely be doing a follow-up video once the team releases the AMA that they are going to talk about all of this stuff and a little bit more information. But as always, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. You know, we have tons of Mavia content coming out for you guys on a consistent basis. Smash that like button so we can get this model out there to show lots of other people what's going on here. Whether you hate it or whether you love it, I'd love to know about it. Come join us on our Discord. We can chat about it, have a constructive conversation. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Cheers.